Hello everyone! Welcome back to Pixel Live. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's a beautiful day and I kid you not, it's another beautiful weekend, beautiful Saturday here in Toronto. I think every weekend has been so beautiful. We're so lucky. Let me know where you're joining in from in the chat. So today we are going to be designing, as you can see in the background, this really cool 3D typography scene in Adobe Dimension. And 3D is all the rage right now, so now's the time to learn how to use some 3D software out there. Alright, so before we jump right in, as always, be sure to head on over to exopixel.com where you can download today's design template. That way you can follow along with me and design alongside me. And what better way to learn than to, learn as you're being taught something. All right, so be sure to download today's design template. So I just want to quickly shout out some amazing 3D artists that I came across, and I definitely admire their work. So shout out to Roman. He is a 3D designer, and his Behance portfolio is just simply gorgeous. I'm loving the colors. I'm loving the scenes that he's created. I think this is just so incredible. Very creative, very abstract, and just lovely, just lovely. And also I wanted to shout out Anna Natter, definitely an inspiration in regards to using Adobe Dimension. She's made some really, really great 3D scenes as well in Adobe Dimension, which is so cool. And she also has some tutorials. I think she has a YouTube channel, so be sure to check out her portfolio and follow her because her work is awesome. Alright, so now that we've gotten that out of the way, I first want to head on over to Adobe Color because before I approach any design project, I always like to search different colors that I can potentially use to create my designs or my scenes. So what I love to do is I love to go to the Explore page on Adobe Color. Right, so I guess the feel that I want to go to design my scene is soft. I want nice, soft, pretty colors. So in the Explore page, I'm just going to search for soft, and it's going to automatically populate different color palettes that are under the keyword soft or that are using colors or color palettes that use that keyword. So I'm seeing some pink, I'm seeing flowers, I'm seeing soft blues, greens, so many color palettes to choose from. But I think I'm going to use some pink. I'm definitely going to use a pink color scheme. So I think this is a really nice color scheme. So just getting a sense of, how I'm going to, I guess, style my scene and color my scene. So now that I have that in mind, let's head on over to Adobe Dimension. So let me switch my scene. There we go. So this is Adobe Dimension and we have our scene set up. So if you download today's project file, we have our scene, and the size of our scene is 1080 by 1080. That's the size for an Instagram photo or just a photo that you can easily share on social media, because I want you guys to, by the end of this stream, be able to walk away with a cool project that you can add to your portfolio. And also tag me on social media at exopixel with 2 L's. Share your work with me because I love to see what you create. Alright, so we have our scene set up. The only thing I'm going to do now is I want to design some walls. I want a floor and I want a wall to kind of set up the background of our scene. So what I'm going to do is right under basic shapes, I'm going to select plane. So now that we have a plane on our scene, I'm just going to rename this layer to floor, just so it's a little more descriptive. So I also want to resize this floor. So I'm going to increase its size, let's say to 200 centimeters. And I'll also increase Z to 200 centimeters as well. So that way the surface area is pretty big. You have a lot of room to design and place objects, all that jazz. So now that we have our floor plane, I want to set up a wall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Option just to kind of duplicate this floor plane, and I'm going to hold down Shift, rotate it 90 degrees, and we have our wall. So we're just adding some dimension to our scene. So as you can see, it's basically going into the ground, so I don't want that. So with this wall selected under Actions, I'm just going to hit Move to Ground. It's going to lift it up, and it's now sitting right on the ground. And I also want to move it backwards. So I'm just going to select this arrow here. And is it going to let me? It looks like it's loading. Guess we're going to have to wait for that. Hopefully it loads, it finishes loading quickly. But when it's done loading, I'm going to move the wall right at the edge of the floor, and that way it's going to set up a nice little scene. Fingers crossed. Okay, good. I was so worried it was going to crash. Oh my gosh. Phew. Okay. So let me just push this back. Uh-oh. Please don't crash. I always say anything can happen when you're live. Pray for me, guys. Is this gonna crash? Oh, it looks like it's frozen. We might be running into some difficulties, but all is good. Worst case scenario, I'll just reopen everything and start where we left off. Okay, for now, let me just reopen Adobe Dimension. Sorry guys, we ran into a little technical difficulties, but all is good. I'm just going to start back where we left off. Luckily, we didn't get too far into our scene. I was able to save it. And let me know in the chat if you can still see everything. Joe says, had a tech issue just now with the internet too. Oh my gosh, hopefully everything is okay on Behance's end. Okay, so we have our scene in Dimension again. Let me see what's going on Adobe Live. Okay, so I'm still streaming, thank God. Yeah, so everything is a little slow, it looks like. Okay, so I think we can continue. Yes, I think everything's back to normal, everything is working. So I'm just going to move this wall backwards, like so, and we have our scene. So I'm just gonna fiddle around with the camera angles. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna select camera in the scene here. And I think I'm going to adjust the field of view. I think 35 is a good field of view. And I'm just going to right click on my mouse and rotate the camera because I kind of want the camera view to be square on the scene where we have our walls and floor set up. So let me just grab this camera pan tool, gonna pan around with the view. And I'm also kind of looking at the grids on the floor plane, and that's kind of helping me align my camera view as well. Okay, so I think this is a good view. Let me just move this up a little. There. Okay, so I love this view. So in Adobe Dimension, you can also save your camera views, which is so cool. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna open this camera bookmarks here, and I can save a view and return to it if I, happen to rotate my camera or, change the view. I can always go back to the view that I've saved. So I'm just gonna hit the plus icon, and I'm gonna save this. I think let's rename it to face view. I'll just say face view, and in my mind that's letting me know it's like the face of all the objects, so it's not an angle, it's like square right on all the objects, right on the scene. Okay, so I have my camera view saved, so I can always return to that view. So now all I need to do is I think I want to add some color to my floor and wall plane. So let me just rename this to wall so I know what it is. And with this layer selected, I'm just going to recolor it right under properties here, and I'm going to color it pink. So from Adobe Color, I already selected some colors that I will be using throughout my scene. So just going to enter the hex code here. Oh, wrong object selected. That's the floor. I'm gonna have to change that. Floor. Let's change this to wall. All right, let's recolor the floor because I want the floor to be like a light gray. So let me type in my light gray hex code. There we go. And let's color the wall a nice pink. I'll select it here. There we go. Alright, so I have the color of my floor and my wall. So now that I have that, I can start adding some objects or some more shapes to my scene. So what I will do now is, I think I'm going to grab the text shape. And by default in Dimension, the text shape is some lorem ipsum. I think we can be a little more creative than that. So I think I am going to, because this is a typography scene, I think I'm going to grab the first initial in my name. So if you don't know already, my name is Marissa. So I'm going to type M. So with this layer selected, under properties, I'm going to delete lorem ipsum. I'm just going to type M, capital M. And it's so tiny on my scene, so let's resize that. And to resize it, I'm just going to hold down Shift. And I'm going to make sure this square is selected, and that's just going to scale it up. I think that's a good size. So I also want to change the font, so it looks like the default is Arial Black right now. So I want this to be Futura PT. So I can open it and I can kind of play around with different fonts, but I already know the one that I want, so I'm just going to type out Futura. There it is. And I want it to be bold. Bam. Bam. Okay, so if you look at the the floor plane, there is a shadow being cast, and it's kind of indicating that it's floating. It's basically suspended. So I want it to sit right on the surface plane. So with this selected, I'm gonna go back to actions and select move to ground. And that's gonna move it so it's sitting right on the ground. Okay, so now that I have my font, I have my text, it's on the ground, I'm gonna apply some material. So there's so many materials you can choose from. You can choose glass, matte, metal, plastic. You can go pretty crazy. But a material that I really loved is 3D printed mesh. So I think I'm gonna add that material to my letter. So I'm just gonna select that. And I can make, as long as this M is selected, if I select any material, it's gonna apply the material to this object. Or I can go into the text layer, so if I just hover over it, I can click this arrow and I can apply different materials to different sides of this object. But I don't want that, I just want it to be applied on throughout the whole object. So I'm just gonna select 3D printed mesh and it's gonna apply this material to my letter. So now that I have my material, I also want to recolor it because right now it's like a boring gray. I think I want this to be a nice bright white. So I'm just going to color it white. And there we go. We have our M. I think this is so far coming along. It's looking good, and it looks good now, but wait till you see what it looks like when we turn on render preview and when we render our scene, because that's where the magic happens. Okay, so we have our letter. The next thing I want to do is I actually want to add some kind of abstract shapes to the background. So I'm gonna head on back to objects. I want to filter all the objects. And under models, I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom and I'm actually going to select abstract curves. And I'm going to use these as fun little artifacts or elements on our scene. That's just going to add some character. So these are the abstract curves that I'm adding to the scene, but I only want to use 2 of all of these. I'm not a fan of all of them, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete the ones that I don't want. So again, if I go to the abstract curves layer, it's pretty much a folder, and then within this folder there's curve 1, 2, 3. So basically you can isolate or remove any curves that you don't want. So curve 1, I think I'm going to keep curve 1. I'm going to keep curve 2, but 6, 4, 5, 3, the rest of them, I do not want them. So I'm just gonna select 6, hold down shift, select 3, and it's gonna select all of the curves, and I'm just gonna press delete because I don't want them. So now that I've deleted the curves, I can kind of resize these curves, move them around, adjust this placement, and have fun with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both curves. So I'm just going to select this folder and I'm going to scale them so they're a lot bigger. And it's just a matter of, you know, moving them around, resizing. Let me just move this camera because I actually want to place it behind the letter. So I'm just moving the camera so I make sure it's behind the letter. And I think I'm going to also want to resize it. So because I saved my camera view earlier, I can just open up my camera bookmarks, select base view, and it's going to bring me back to the default view, regardless if I move the camera around. So we're back to our default view. I'm just going to resize this. Oops, don't want to rotate it, I want to resize it. So I'm just selecting the curve, and then I'm going to make sure I select this square and just scale it up. Okay, so I think this is a good size. So now I kind of want to reposition each curve individually. So the first curve, I think I want this to kind of, I want to rotate it. So I'm just going to select this first curve. So I'm in curve 1 in the scene layers, and I am going to rotate it. Like so. And I think I want to make it bigger, so I'm just going to scale it up some more. And I'm going to move it. I think I'm going to move it up like this. There. Just playing around with its position, pretty much. That's all I'm doing. So now that I'm doing that, I am also going to fill around with this. So I think I'm going to move this, the right hand side here. And let's see what happens if I play around with the scale. So I'm just increasing its size on the x-axis, and it's kind of making it wider. So I think I'm going to leave it here, and I'm just going to move it up a little bit. There we go. Whoa. I don't want that. There. All right, I think I like how this looks. I'm gonna leave that alone. So now that I have the positioning of my curves, I'm going to apply some material to it. So I'm going to go to my materials. And I think for this curve 2, I think I want it to be glass. So I'm just going to click glass and apply it. And for the first curve, I am going to apply gold as a material, because I think gold will just, gold and pink, like they just go together. So I am going to look for gold. Where is gold? Gold, gold. I think it's under substance materials. There it is, clean gold. So I'm going to click clean gold. Oops. Let me make sure I'm clicking curve 2. Curve 2, clean gold. All right, that looks great. That looks so good. So let's say I want to kind of preview what this will look like when this scene is rendered, because as you're working in Adobe Dimension and by default, it's not showing you the rendered version of the scene. It's showing you kind of a lower quality. That way, you know, you're able to work in 3D without it slowing down or loading, because it takes a lot of, you know, processing for your computer to load 3D graphics. So what you can do is right on the top right hand corner here, you can toggle on and off render preview. So I'm just going to toggle it on and see how our scene is coming along. And feel free to say hi in the chat if you're tuning in. Love to see who's joining today. So as render preview is kind of generating our image, it's grainy, but then you're gonna start to see the image in its high resolution look, and it's gonna start looking real good. So just know I am live streaming at the same time. I'm using Dimension. I think my MacBook is doing a fantastic job. I'm so glad, knock on wood, that there's been no crashing happening. So I'm so proud of my MacBook. Alright, so you can kind of see how the rendered preview is loading our image. The graphic is getting clearer. The gold, the light is hitting different. It looks so good. Yeah, so this looks good. I don't think I'm gonna wait till everything is loaded because it's gonna take a while, but you kind of get it. You get an idea. I think you get what I'm trying to show you. So I'm gonna toggle render preview off. And we're gonna go back to our scene, and I'm going to actually move this curve. I believe this is curve 2. Is this curve 2? Curve 2. Yeah, it's curve 2. So I'm gonna move it forward just a tad. There we go. So let me go back to my saved camera view. There. All right, so we have our abstract artifacts on our scene. So I kind of want to play around with gravity. I want to add some spheres to my scene. So I'm going to go back to my objects here. And I am going to select sphere. And I'm gonna give my computer a chance to load because I know it's working really hard. Gotta give it a minute. Shout out to everyone that's viewing this stream on Behance. Thank you for tuning in. Okay, so let me select sphere. And let's place a sphere on our scene. So I'm going to select this sphere and I'm going to move it over here. And it looks like we have another sphere, so I'm just going to position it and kind of move it behind our M. So I'm rotating the camera just so I can get a sense of where it's being positioned. I'm going to shrink it down, so I'm just going to click this square here, and then I'm just going to scale it down. And I'm just going to move this right behind our M. So if I rotate back, let me go back to my saved camera view. There we go. So let's just move this behind like so. I think I'm going to make this actually a little bigger. There we go. Okay. And I'll put that there. Okay, this looks good. So for this left ball here, or sphere, I actually want it to be a shiny plastic sphere. So I'm going to go to my materials and I'm going to apply plastic. So let's apply plastic to this sphere. And I also want it to be blue. So I already have my colors. So I'm going to just type in the hex code for this blue plastic sphere. There we go. All right, so we have our blue sphere. So the right sphere here, I want it to be, I think I want it to be wood, like a nice light wood. So again, under materials, we have spruce wood, we have walnut wood, and we also have light oak wood. I'm gonna select light oak wood because I think that's gonna look good. And it does, it looks good. All right, so I also want to have a sphere kind of sitting right above this one here. So I'm gonna hold down Option on my keyboard, and I'm just gonna, gonna select this arrow, and it's gonna kind of move it up, and I'm gonna shrink it down. There we go. And I'll kind of move it this way. So it's kind of floating right above this bottom one here. So the material that I'm going to apply for this sphere, I think I want to see what materials we have, and then I'll just select one and hopefully it will look good. So we have plastic, but I already have plastic. I used wood. I don't think I want leather. And we already have some gold with our abstract artifacts. Maybe marble. Let's see what we have. We have spotted marble, Valencia marble, and veined marble. Let's see what veined marble looks like. I think that'll look good. Oh, that looks so cool. I love it. Alright, so veined marble it is. Alright, so now that we have those spheres, I also want to add some more spheres kind of suspended in the air within our scene. So I'm going to go back to our basic shapes. I'm going to select sphere again. And I'm just going to move this up so it's suspended kind of in the air, like so. And I'm just going to shrink this down. Like so. There we go. And I also want to apply metal to this. Ooh. That looks cool. Right. So I do want to apply around maybe 2 more of these metal spheres. So I'm just going to hold down Option to duplicate. And I'm just going to move them around the scene. So I think I want this to be pushed behind the letter. I think here is good. Move this over. I think I'm going to shrink this down. And I'm going to duplicate it once more. So again, I'm just going to hold down Option. Kind of play around with the positioning and the scale. So I'm going to size this up a little bit. And I'm kind of going to move this out. Or let's see what this looks like a little higher. Maybe here. I think I'm going to put this a little closer here. So it's just a matter of playing around with the positioning of the different objects on your scene. I'm just seeing what looks good to your eye. I think I'm going to leave it where it was. There. Okay. So before we move on, I think I'm going to reposition this zigzag. I think I want to make it a little wider. I'm going to move it up. There we go. So I want to put this here. this up a little more. Move it in. There. I love how this looks. I think this looks cool. This is very abstract. Yeah, I love how this looks. Okay, so I have my spheres, I have my abstract artifacts, I applied the materials that I want. So I'm pretty happy with this scene. So now it's just a matter of seeing what it looks like, or turning on render preview, because this is kind of a low quality version of our scene. So when I turn on render preview, we're gonna get a more accurate look at our scene. And if I need to, we can move things around, play around with the lighting and the camera before we kind of finish up the scene. So I'm gonna toggle on render preview. And let's see what our scene looks like so far. So now it's going to generate a high quality view of our scene. I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. We do have to give it some time to render, but it looks good so far. I really love the metal. I love the type, the spheres, the plastic spheres. I love how the light's hitting all of the different objects on the scene. I love the shadows. The lighting looks so nice. So the only thing I'm going to do is I think I'm first going to play around with the camera view, and then I'm going to add a different lighting to the scene. So I'm just going to toggle preview off. And let me just grab the pan tool. And I'm just going to play around with the camera view. So I think I'm going to move this a little. Let me go back to my face view. I'm going to pan this up a little more. There. Okay, so I am actually going to save this view as well. So I'm going to open up my camera bookmarks, hit the plus icon, and what should we name this? Maybe face view 2, because it's still the face. It's not like an angle like this. It's still the face, so I'm just gonna name it face view 2. Okay, so I love how this looks. I love the camera view. So I'm gonna play around with lighting now. So under scenes, I'm just gonna select environment, and I'm gonna go to lights in starter assets, under starter assets here. And I think I want to apply a different environment light. So let's see what they have. Studio, panel lights. I think I'm gonna try Studio Light Arches A. Let's see how that looks. So just by applying that, you already see instantly how our scene and the lighting in our scene changed everything. It's a lot brighter than it was before. So I'm excited to see what that will look like when we toggle on render preview. But before we toggle on render preview, I just want to show you one more thing. So let me just go into camera. So you can essentially add a focal point on your scene. So let's say you want, for example, this M to be the focal point. Anything that's kind of further away from the M or focal point is going to be kind of blurred, and then everything closest will be nice and clear. So that's such another really cool feature in Adobe Dimension. So while we're at it, let's turn on focus. So again, just make sure you're selecting camera, and I'm going to toggle on focus, and then I'm going to select set focus point. So now that I've I toggled that on, I'm just going to click where I want my focal point to be, and in this case I want it to be the M. Now let me click the M. And I can also play around with the blur amount. So right now it's 10. Maybe I can increase this to, let's say if I want to increase it to 100. This is definitely very dramatic, but I do not want that. So I think I'll leave it to maybe 15. Or maybe even 20. Let's see what 20 looks like. So you can see the metal spheres, they're a little blurred because they're kind of further away. So I think for now I'll leave that. What else can we do? So we have our focus point. We change the environment lightings. We have all of our objects on our scene, and we also save different camera views. So how about we turn on render preview and let's see how our scene looks. This is the moment of truth, guys. Hopefully all looks good. So we just have to give it some time to render and to load. Joe Smith says the design looks good so far. Thanks, Joe. And feel free to let me know if you've ever played around in Adobe Dimension. I think it's such a cool app. I love Dimension. And 3D design is like, it's all the rage. Everyone is getting into 3D. I love 3D. Like, I'm definitely loving playing around in Dimension. It's so cool. Alright, so I am live streaming and rendering or toggling on render preview, so it is going to take a while, so I don't think I can wait till this is completely rendered. So for now, I think this is a good idea of how it will look when we render the scene. But really quickly, let me just show you how you can render your scene once it's complete. So again, I'm loving how my design turned out. I'm definitely happy with this. So let me just turn off render preview for now. And to render your scene, all I'm gonna do is in the top left corner here, I'm just gonna click render. And we did save some current camera views for our scene. So you can export the current view, you can export the 2 camera views that we saved or bookmarked. So we saved face view and face view 2. So I can just select all to export every single view, or just maybe one view that I liked. For now, I'm just going to select face view 2 because I did like that last camera view that we bookmarked. You can change the file name you want to export it to, so you can change that, and you can also change the export quality, so you can choose from low, medium, high, and then you can also export your scene as a PSD. And then you can also export it as a PNG or both. And then of course you can change the file path you want to render your scene to. So yeah, really cool way to create 3D scenes using Adobe Dimension. I am so happy with how this turned out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and thanks so much for joining me here on a Saturday. I know it's noon, I'm hungry, I'm probably gonna go grab a bite to eat, and then enjoy the rest of my weekend, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of your weekend too. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will catch you in the next live stream. I think I'm going to be streaming later today, so be sure to tune in to that. And if not, I will be streaming tomorrow, but I think I'm going to do one later today. So yeah, probably see you guys soon. Peace out, guys. Have a great rest of your day, and enjoy the beautiful weather. Bye!